And thanks for joining us on another edition of Poets Have Something to Say. This is the July show, and we'll get right into it. Tim McMahon joins us today. He enjoys writing for special occasions. He talks a lot about the beauty of nature, which I really love and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, about how he writes about nature, what some of his motivations are, what his writing process is. He also writes for mental health, and I've done the same thing. He's been published in FSM Journal and has a ekphrastic poem displayed at the Trout Museum, a member of the Wisconsin Fellowship of Poets. He attends their local sponsored meeting, Open Mic, which I've heard they're great. He also enjoys sitting in on the monthly Wordsmiths meeting in North Fond du Lac, which I really appreciate Tim's involvement with our club. And he is a resident of the city of Appleton, recently retired skilled trades factory worker. After reading Tim's poem, after reading the poems, person is really filled with, I guess, emotions is the best way to put it, with heart and soul. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey.
And I guess we're a little warmed up because we just did a little bit of trial tape there, but we're good now. Thanks again for being with us today. As we always do, we start off with a poem. Can you start us off with one of your poems?
Sure can.
Great.
I'll start off with one that's called Bleeding Hearts.
Great.
Only in the springtime, with colors pink and green, you open up my heart to what my eyes have seen. Your roots have strength to nurture the branches as they grow, the leaves and broken hearts, whose beauty that you show. Hanging on like lovers as the winds of storms blow past, the blossoms fall like teardrops and wither in the grass. Like a bleeding heart that weeps for all to see, my tears have shown me what a broken heart can be.
That was a beautiful poem, Tim. Thanks for sharing that. And welcome to the show. Glad to have you aboard. And if you just joined us, Tim McMahon is with us. He joins us from his home in Appleton today. Just a little bit later in the program, we're going to have him read something about the reunion, which was a beautiful poem that he actually read. You read at your 50th, right? Your 50th high school?
Our class sponsor, she was the princess for the event, the alumni event.
Okay, perfect.
There was a person there that had been gone out of school 75 plus years.
Wow, that is amazing.
And it was our 50th, so yeah, it was amazing.
I'm coming up on my 50th in a couple years.
It creeps up on you, right?
It sure does. Okay, well, Tim McMahon is with us, and he's going to share some more poetry later in the show. And we're going to talk to him about his writing process and and he's very motivated, he tells me, by nature. And we're going to get into that. But tell us, first of all, a little bit about your writing process. Is it a sort of a natural process where is there something that motivates you more than other things when you write?
Just things I see, or like I said, occasions. If I wrote one for my own birthday, I wrote one for Mother's Day. I write for Mother's Day. I write, different occasions. Like I said, nature. I just, things pop out, and like I said, the FSM Journal poem that I had published was A Bear Came to Visit, it was called. And that was a bear coming within 20 feet of me while I'm sitting on a little bench that we have in the woods up north. And it kind of startled me. I mean, it wasn't a real big bear, but any bear at all is a little frightening.
I was going to say, were you a little bit like petrified at the moment, or what?
Yeah, we both stared at each other. I mean, through the poem, I described kind of the process, what would happen, like we both froze and stared at each other, and we both, I stood up, and then finally he just walked away slowly. And
my gosh, I cannot believe that. How I know I'd be petrified if I wouldn't know what to do. I think I'd be frozen. But
yeah, that's kind of what I was.
if you have that poem, we'd love to hear that later in the show.
Okay.
That'd be great, and we'll read the reunion poem. Do you have the one, the poem about the that we rehearsed a little bit earlier?
The trees in the storm.
Can you read that for us? That was a I really enjoyed that one.
Sure. Trees in the Storm, it's titled. Back and forth they flow like lovers in the night, dancing to the thunder as the storm brings on its might. Bending, sometimes breaking, as she brings me to my knees. The treetops touch each other, saying, "Help me, will you please?" The raindrops falling gently, like tears fall from my eyes. Clouds take away the sunshine as they darken up the skies. The storms of yesterday have left me with such much pain. Broken branches in the trees will not grow back again. And that one was also up in the North Woods, watching. We've got pine trees and some, mostly the tall ones are all pine, 50, 80 feet tall.
Yeah.
And how they just dance back and forth, and like the treetops do actually touch each other, And
right. Right. I loved your phrase, dancing. I think you said dancing with the thunder, right?
Yeah, dancing to the thunder. Yep.
I love that phrase. And even though the poem kind of sort of has an ominous feel, there's this sense of beauty and this sublime beauty of nature that's kind of running through the theme too.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Like I said, that probably took me maybe 20 minutes to a half hour to compose, and it just comes to me. I don't know what it is, but I just have a little touch with nature, I guess.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned this on James Hamilton's interview that I did last year, but when I've read that sometimes when Neil Young, the great Neil Young, when he writes a song, it just comes to him. He admits he doesn't know where it's coming from. He feels like it's coming through him, but it's not from him.
Yeah, I think a lot of mine is, like I said, emotions, or something touches my heart, or I need to find something to touch my heart that, take away some of the loneliness or the sorrow or whatever you want to call it.
Right. If you just joined us, Tim McMahon is with us, and he is a poet. He joins us from his home in Appleton. And when we interviewed David Brost, was our last guest on the show. He's an Illinois poet and friend of Mary Chancellor, who you know from the Wordsmiths. And they're really good friends from Illinois, Chicago area. But David tells me he writes for a lot of friends. He loves to write poems for friends or surprise friends with poetry. And it's a great way, really, to communicate with friends, too, isn't it? Reading a poem.
Yep. It connects, like you said, it connects us. I really was never an outgoing person, or I still am not, and I have a lot of fear for public speaking and for all that good stuff. And but as far as the poetry, I found it for a release from, like I said, mental illness,
Right. It really helps. It's a really good form of therapy. I definitely agree. And so when you sit down and to write a poem, do you usually write 3 or 4 poems in a day, or is it just usually one poem, or I know some people kind of go in big groups of poems where they'll write like 5 or 6 or 7 a day, and then they'll go 2 weeks without writing, or do you tend to write more on a consistent basis?
I try to try to get inspiration or whatever you want to call it daily, but sometimes life is too busy, or I'm not in the right mood, or well, you know how it is, and
oh yeah,
so sometimes it's just all I come up with is a title, and then I'm lost, because I'll see something and it inspires me. Last year and the year before, I spent a lot of time in the backyard. We have a koi pond.
Oh, nice.
And it's only a 500-gallon pond, but basically, just sitting out there watching the fish and listening to the birds, and I'd write about, like, I have a couple titled "Garden of Love" and my secret garden and that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you don't mind talking about it too, one thing I found very interesting when you talked with wordsmiths, you talked about the theme of angels that come through your poems sometimes. I thought that was kind of fascinating, that you find goodness in others and you find this angelic quality in life. Tell us about what you found with that.
Well, again, up north, there was this before we put a building up. We just had a slab, and we have just a camper up there, and
right.
I was sitting on the chair, and the clouds were coming in, and I'm looking up, and here's I don't know if I sent you that picture. I believe I did. I sent it to Mary, and it looks just like an angel. And it happened to be like a week after a good friend of mine passed away.
Wow, that's cool.
And I mean, I do believe in angels, and I believe they're helpful for our spiritual life, and that's why I try to put them in. Like I said, I got like 75 poems with just the word angel in them, and
that's cool. Yeah, and there's things, as we were talking earlier about off the podcast, but we were talking about how there's things that science can't explain, and
right,
after my son died, we had these admiral butterflies that would show up, and they would, this was like within a week after, or 2 weeks after my son passed away, in early May, and these butterflies just kept kind of swarming around. One came up right to my feet and just was looking at me for a while. That's just that's never happened. I was out watering the tree, and one just went onto my arm and wouldn't, was just sitting there, and that's never happened. And you gotta wonder what's going on there. Now, what's interesting with that is the admirals this year, this May and this June, when we were flocked by them last year, there's none to be seen suddenly this year.
Yeah.
So why
that is different.
Why right after Stefan's death did that happen? That is so wild. So yeah, and that's great. That's one thing that poetry can really help with, is these kinds of really, grief, or explaining the unexplainable, and a poem can kind of explain the unexplainable in probably the best way possible.
Yeah, it brings out your feelings. It should anyway, and your emotions, and it. And I think that's what poetry is all about. I mean, like G. Anthony says, to tell the truth is the biggest thing.
Right. Yeah.
And you need to tell yourself the truth. I mean, that's we all live with so many dark, deep secrets that that no one wants to know, or we don't want to let anyone know, and
Right.
And we beat ourselves up so bad sometimes for it,
Right. Yeah. And sometimes just by letting it out, maybe it's poetry, maybe it's talking to a good friend. That's very therapeutic. If you just joined us, Tim McMahon is with us. He's joining us from his home in Appleton. This is Poets Have Something to Say. And if you haven't subscribed to the Poet Laureate channel, it's that subscribe button's right down below. I also do covers of songs and some original songs. And again, as I stated earlier, that's my therapy too. Music, and I think music and poetry go well together. And a lot of people say that my poems are much like a song. And I, to be honest, Tim, I see that a similarity between the way we write is that we both have this rhythm that's a really cool rhythm within the poem.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I try to. A lot of poets don't like rhyme, but I'm old school, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, and I don't know. I just feel that my poems have to have some kind of structure with rhyme.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. Recently, I've been experimenting with non-rhyming, and Tom Cannon, the Oshkosh Poet Laureate, had been coaxing me a little bit to try to get me to do non-rhyming.
Yeah, yeah. It's a different style. I mean, I don't know. I went to a workshop this spring up in Door County, and the gal was from. It was at Right On. I don't know if you ever heard on.
I've heard of it, yeah.
And she was from Miami, Florida, and she come up and she said she discussed how poets should find their own style or whatever you want to call it, and name it or whatever, And she had developed her own style and actually has a name for it.
Really?
And I forget what. I mean, it's a physical or a legitimate style that she had.
That's cool. So, like, it's not Shakespearean. It's not
Right. It's not.
iambic.
What do they say? There's 160 some or 170
Yeah,
different types of poetry.
yeah,
And she said, yeah, that she teaches to find your own or to develop your own. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. No, I definitely agree. And then I think probably the more polished one gets, the more you develop this unique style. Really.
Right.
We're talking
Yeah.
with Tim McMahon from Appleton, and tell us a little bit now. Are you ever planning to publish your works, or is that something maybe down the road that you're thinking of?
Well, that's one of the struggles I have is collecting, getting everything collected. And, I'm not a big textbook type person.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm through school, I had a lot of troubles. And that's why I went to the factory to work.
Mm-hmm.
And publishing, I don't know. I talked to different people, and yeah, you should publish that. You should publish that. My wife and I put a small book together for a friend up north, and she kept bugging me, yeah, get that stuff published. So we printed it off at home and put it together for her. But yeah, I don't even know where to start to publish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's a lot of good people out there. Like you mentioned, G. Anthony, I'm sure would be a great resource to ask
Yeah.
him about publishing. He's very social media conscious guy too.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he's putting.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
He
ahead.
actually reached out to me for his anthology.
Yeah.
He said, I know you have some healing poems, and I want to see them, and I want to, a submission for his anthology he's putting together or whatever.
Yes, I plan to submit 2 or 3 or 4 poems of my own to that, and if he picks one, that's great.
Sure.
But that's kind of cool. I like the theme of healing. I like to feel that my work has some of that, and I know yours does for sure with the nature themes.
Yeah.
Before we forget, boy, time is flying by. Can you read that reunion poem for us?
Sure. This one's titled 50 Years. So many years have passed, though it seems like yesterday. On the stage with cap and gown, they sent you on your way. Some would find more learning for the future they would need to go out into the world ahead and truly to succeed. Others went to work in the mills and factories to make a hard-earned living, or to start a family. There were those whose future that was lost along the way. We were no longer children that lived from day to day. Through the years we learned, some did not survive. Many left us early. We are here, we are alive. Remember, it's been 50 years since we all were just a child. And remember all the happy years and the times that we all smiled. The journey seemed so long as we walked along the path. Some would find it useful. Science, technology, English, and math. The memories that were made from those years of K through 12, we made so many friendships. Our differences were resolved. It's now we live a new chapter. We have reached the golden years. Celebrate what was given and raise a cup of cheer.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, that one. I didn't spread it around a lot because school, like I said, school was nothing but trouble for me, and I was trouble myself, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, that's called learning about life, and everybody has their own,
your own
place,
path. Yeah.
right? As I get older, I respect that more and more, and I used to even be, many years ago, I used to think, well, if you don't have a college education, it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a lot of people that have various levels of education, various levels of their start out points in life, and it's what you do with what you're given.
Yep, and that was a struggle for me at first. I mean, it took a couple of years for me to get a full-time job, and I fell into apprenticeship.
Yep.
And I actually attended school in Fond du Lac at the Marine Park, and
wow, cool.
And that journey, I mean, I was in skilled trades for over 40 years, and they treated me very well.
That's great, and you became a success. And my life was similar. I thought I was going to be a teacher, and then a counselor. I bombed out of both of those, and then found a radio school, which was a blast, and then did radio for 20 years, radio news broadcasting.
Nice.
And now with Spectrum, a great company. But that being said, we all have our different, and I guess what I was trying to say is, as I get older, I realize I respect each person for their own unique journeys that they have, and their own unique pressures and their own unique challenges, much more than I did, say, in my 20s and 30s.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, speaking of reunion, I just want to share a quick poem I did for, I love the Ripon College reunions, and they're only like a half hour away, which is great.
Oh yeah.
And you got people flying in from California and from New York and Connecticut, Colorado.
Sure.
And so this is the one where it was sort of motivated by drinking a glass of Chardonnay at a reunion and just feeling like all my troubles are gone. I'm back in my youthful state. And I think that kind of happens at reunions. You kind of go into this youthful state for a while, right?
Oh yeah.
And you kind of pretend it's all of a sudden you're 21 again, or 20.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a cool feeling. This one's called Chardonnay. So pour me another Chardonnay. Let the joy soak in as night replaces day. Sunshine in our souls, beautiful smooth sailing. Think of another beautiful time regaling. So pour me that glass of Chardonnay. The hearts are heavy, but the soul still plays. Let's write the last verses past our prime, a steady beat in 4/4 time. So pour me that enticing Chardonnay as we gather on the Union lawn today, smiling faces, worn by the years, but still feeling blessed because we are all here. So that's a Chardonnay. But that's kind of the same feeling. You kind of ended with the same kind of thing with your poem that, hey, we're here. Let's do a cheer to being alive, right?
Yeah, and bringing back, like you said, your youthful years. It's good to do. It felt good. Our alumni, like I said, was for Kaukauna High School. It was from back 75 years. Like I said, one person there is still living past the 75-year high school anniversary, and that's an accomplishment in itself.
That is totally, I mean, you're talking 93 years old,
93
probably.
years old at least,
And I hope to be going, I hope to be going to maybe 60, but we'll see.
Right.
We won't press our luck, right?
Right.
Well, Tim, we're just about out of time. Any parting words? What are your plans for the future in writing poetry? Any plans as far as writing or different things you plan to do?
I'd like to spread out a little bit and open, to a little more creative style. I don't know. Like you said, as far as publishing, I don't know if, do I have, my first thing is, I have a lot of insecurities. Do I have are my words publishable? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or is it just a waste of time and money and, effort and like the Dear John letters you get, when you submit or whatever. And I don't submit much anyway. I only submitted maybe 2 or 3 times, but
I think it's totally okay even not to publish. Even though I do the publishing thing, I share mainly with family and friends. I see it as a hobby. Yeah. I'm not going to be touching the great poets like William Blake.
You're not going to New York or whatever, yeah.
I'm not going to be William Blake, talking about the enduring beams of love or anything like that. But we do the best we can in our own corners of the world, right? And if we can share a little bit by being a North Fond du Lac Poet Laureate, the library has been gracious enough to do that program. And so I want to be the best I can be and to represent poetry. And we've done some workshops and things, but I think it's great to just spread the word that writing can be a therapeutic and a beautiful thing. And it's great.
It is, yeah.
It's great to express your passion in words, right? Well, thanks very much, Tim. It was a great show, and thanks for your patience with my audio system tonight.
All right, thank you, Jeffrey.
All right, always a pleasure, and we'll see you at the next Wordsmiths meeting.
All right, thank you very much.
All right,
have a good night.
Take care. You too. There's Tim McMahon, and he is a poet from Appleton, Wisconsin, and what a great interview that was. And this is the July edition of Poets Have Something to Say. We're working on more guests, and one of our upcoming guests too, Gary Chenoa. He's an award-winning poet from the Campbellsport area. So that's going to do it for our show today. Thanks so much, Tim McMahon, for joining us. Have a great evening, everyone.